Our topic today is the cost of nomination and expression of interest forms. And Abdul Salam Jibril went to town to feel the pulse of the public over the cost of nomination forms towards the 2023 elective positions. Here is the backgrounder with his findings. That's a prompt for our conversation.
As part of the build-up to the 2023 elections, political parties have been engaged in the process of nominating candidates for elective positions in government. Across the various parties, individuals have been invited to express interest in contesting for party positions or signify interest in being nominated as candidates. A significant feature of the process is the cost of nomination forms being demanded from aspirants. Across board, some experts note that the fees being charged ahead of the elections are proving to be so high and many party members will not be able to afford them. For the ruling All Progressives Congress APC, the fees for its expression of interest and nomination forms for presidential aspirants is 100 million naira. The party also fixed 50 million naira for governorship aspirants, 20 million naira and 10 million naira for senatorial and House of Representatives aspirants respectively, and 2 million naira for State House of Assembly aspirants. This is a far cry from the 45 million naira fees for presidential aspirants in 2018. For the People's Democratic Party (PDP), the party fixed its presidential forms at 40 million naira. The party also fixed 21 million naira for governorship aspirants, 3.5 million naira and 2.5 million naira for senatorial and House of Representatives aspirants respectively, and 600,000 naira for State House of Assembly aspirants. Experts also note that other political parties such as the New Nigerian People's Party (NNPP), Young People's Party (YPP), All Progressive Grand Alliance (APGA), and the Social Democratic Party (SDP), among others, pegged their presidential aspirant form above 20 million naira.
Well, I think it's actually outrageous. So it's quite extravagant and exorbitant.
My first opinion, they don't want youth. They don't want people that don't have money to contest for the election.
If you want our democracy to go smooth, to be for the people by the people, actually the price must be come down, must be affordable, so that people can purchase, people can participate in the electoral system.
As the 2023 general elections draw closer, why is the cost of nomination forms high, and what impact will it have on the build-up to the elections? Guests on the program will be speaking to issues on the cost of political party nomination forms shortly.
Thank you very much, Abdul Salam Jibril, for that backgrounder. With us in the studios to discuss those issues and more, would like to welcome the national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, and also national chairman of the Action Democratic Party, ADP, and a one-time presidential candidate in the 2019. Alhaji Yabagi Yusuf Sani, it's our pleasure to welcome you back to Good Morning Nigeria. We had you a couple of days ago, and we're delighted that you are back in the studios with us this morning.
Thank you, Kinsley.
Let's also welcome Alhaji Mustafa Umar Madawaki. Alhaji Mustafa is also popularly known as Otumba. He's of the APC and a governorship aspirant in Adamawa State. Otumba, pleasure to have you this morning.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Now, we also welcome Dr. Ernest Reke, a political scientist and the House of Reps aspirant, PDP Ebonyi State. Dr. Reke, it's good to have you join us this morning via Zoom.
Thank you very much and good morning.
Now, we also have Samson Itodo, Executive Director, Yaga Africa, also joining us on the program via Zoom. Samson, it's good to have you again today on the program.
Good morning, and it's great to be here.
All right, gentlemen, once again, it's our pleasure to have you with us on today's conversation. You listen to the background up, and of course, you are familiar with the views of members of the public on this. But the parties, of course, are already proceeding with the collection of the fees for expression of interest and nomination forms. Let's begin with the IPAC chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council. What is the view of IPAC on this? Or is it every party is on its own at this stage against the background of public reaction?
Well, thank you, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians. Definitely, we in IPAC, we are worried, concerned about the high fees that parties are conditioned, to charge. I use the word conditioned because democracy is a very serious business. In fact, the most serious business on the land, more than any other business you can think of, because that's what determines what makes or mar a country. Because through it, you get your leadership. And if you don't do it properly, of course, you end up with anything, and we don't want a situation where you just end up with what will not take this country to the promised land. So the point I'm trying to make is that Nigerians who are expressing their concern about the high fees are right, believe you me, Kingsley. But why don't we look at the general situation in the country as far as the economy is concerned? Take it from the basic things that we Nigerians go to the market to buy. The cost of garri today, the cost of rice, even the cost of petrol that government, administratively fixed. The cost, even the naira, the rate of naira, exchange rate of naira, what has happened to it? So there is a high level of inflation in the economy. And when parties charge these fees, it is not that the parties want to use this money for anything other than to prosecute a credible, effective election campaign that will deliver, the right candidates for the people. And to do that, to move from one place to the other in this country today, in 2018, perhaps what you pay then, what you are paying now, maybe 5 times what you used to pay, if not more than that. So, and these activities will have to be embarked upon. Parties will have to go out and print materials, posters, organize campaigns, organize rallies, pay transportation fees, to people who come, some of the people who come to attend these rallies, So we're all in this, how do you call it, catch 22, whereby you don't know, So the concern people are expressing is not peculiar to political activities alone. Go to the markets. Things are not what they used to be before, And it is because it has become necessary. When we sit down in IPAC and discuss all these things, we just lament, that, well, do you do elections in your bedroom? Campaign? No, you have to go out. You have to assemble people. You have to talk to people. You have to sell your party. You have to print posters. You have to pay you guys on the television,
No, that's when you advertise.
Yeah, we advertise, yes. But we have to advertise. If you advertise, who knows that you are there as a political party or even to come to your party to now support your candidate. So we are all in this together. It isn't that the parties want to extort, Nigerians. But like I said, this is a very serious business that must be treated very seriously and given all the things required. So that's why some of the parties, are charging what they are charging. I'm not in any way saying it's the right thing. But this situation we find ourselves as a country, what do we do?
Well, sir, you've just spoken as like a politician, right? Because if the parties will now rely on the money charged on aspirants to run the party, then in the right sense of it, the party does not exist in the first instance, because you don't run elections every year. So if they're going to rely solidly on money they will generate from the aspirants, assuming aspirants were just two in each party, what happened? The money they will...
The issue is this. Let me tell you, the issue is this. Why I say catch 22. Before this time, before the situation we are in today, there used to be members of parties that pay their dues, membership dues. It used to be the situation, the order of the day. There used to be what you call funding from government for some important activities that the parties must embark upon. All these do not exist anymore. Members don't pay their membership dues anymore. They don't pay. In fact, parties have to look for money to even give to some. If you now say your member should go to where he will register online or something like that, you say, I don't have online, I don't have money to even travel from where I am, but I'm interested in your party. I want to be a member of your party. So you now have to find money to give in, so that he can go to where he will fulfill the requirement. And INEC says the membership you are going to submit to them must be in two forms. One in soft and the other one in hard copies. So that's why I say it's a catch-22. And the issue is that, so parties now wait for this time when people that are able and willing voluntarily appear that I want to use your platform to contest for an election. So you want to contest for an election? And it's not only peculiar to us in Nigeria. Everywhere in the world, even in America, elections are not cheap, believe you me.
All right. So I wanted the Yaga to come in here.
I know you bring in the Yaga. But IPAC chairman.
Yes, sir.
You said something. You said an aspirant comes and says, I want to use your platform. That pronoun, your platform. But you have to be a member of a party. Say, I want to use our platform.
Our platform.
Why not our platform? Why is it your platform?
Well, thank you very much for correcting me. It's our platform. But at that point in time, if you look at the dialogue between the two people, I should have said our platform. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that after being a member, he is now saying, I want to contest an election, on our platform.
Yeah, but Kilian, you know the subtext of that. Yeah. Political parties have been described variously as special purpose vehicles. So if this platform doesn't work, it goes to another one. Kilian, take on the
Before we go to Omar, Mustafa Omar, who is also an active politician, let's bring in Samson Itodo here. You've listened to the IPAC chairman. Of course, reeling out some of the reasons, why the parties have taken the decisions that they have taken. And you, from the point of view of an observer, what's your take on this astronomical rise, in the charges by almost all the parties with respect to nomination forms and expression of interest to run for different levels of, the election?
Well, thank you very much. I heard the IPAC chairman justifying this high cost of fees. And from a younger Africa perspective, from the not too young to young perspective, our position is that the parties have imposed high costs of fees that are outrageous in every respect, and that these costs of nomination forms and expression of interest forms do not reflect our social reality, they don't reflect our economic reality, and they don't reflect our political reality. And it's unfortunate that the parties have placed high cost of nomination forms as a qualification criteria for leadership recruitment. And it's very unfortunate that at the time when the country requires, a new form of leadership, the criteria that the parties are relying on is the high cost of nomination fees to determine whether a candidate is serious or not. And I think that is very sad. That's very unfortunate. Alhaji Yabagi Sani and I were in a meeting yesterday, and this was the topic of discussion. And I think that the parties make the claim that first, in our context, there is no state funding of political parties. So parties will consider the revenue mobilized from the sale of forms to run the affairs of the parties. And secondly, they impose this high cost of nomination fees, to as a due diligence measure to determine whether candidates are serious or not. But they also fail to recognize, the negative or knock-on effect that this has. First, on the membership of parties, and also the inability of parties to recruit, competent leaders who can fix the leadership challenge that Nigeria grapples with. And from our perspective, these particular fees are too high, they are outrageous, they will not lead to recruitment of competent leaders who have the requisite credentials to hold public office. It would reinforce electoral corruption, because when people pay high costs just to secure nomination of parties, we've not talked about the campaigns. It only adds up until when they get into office, their first preoccupation will be how can they recoup the expenses that they have made before they got into office. And I just hope that our political parties have considered the implication of this for our political system, the implication of this for our leadership recruitment, as well as the implication of this for the vast majority of voters. And people, watching and seeing this high cost of nomination fees will just, fold their hands and say, hey, in this country, leadership recruitment is not determined by what you can offer. It's determined by how much you can spend just to secure party nomination. And it's unfortunate, I must say. And our position is that these fees are too outrageous, and the parties should reduce the cost of nomination forms if they are keenly interested in ridding our political process of all forms of electoral corruption, or also mobilizing and recruiting leaders that have what it takes to hold public office.
All right, Samson Itodo, thank you very much there for your opening comments. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Now back to the studios here. We will introduce Alhaji Mustafa Umar Badawaki, a governorship aspirant of the APC in Adamawa State. Let's have your take on this subject.
I will tend to agree with the IPAC chairman. I have picked up the form myself, and it is biting. But then I don't think we should be single-track minded on this issue. We should look at it holistically. While it is unfair to a lot of young men coming in wanting to contest for political offices all over the place, we should also be mindful of the fact that these political parties also need money for their expenses. And like the IPAC chairman said, hardly any member, any adherent of any political party pays his dues. More than 95% don't. So where do you expect the political parties to raise money for their daily operations? Governments don't fund them anymore. They are a political party, not a business venture. Therefore, they still have to fall back on their adherents, on their members, to raise money. So like the IPAC chairman said, they wait for this type of period to launch whatever it is they want to and peg these figures. It is not a new thing. All over the world, in all democracies all over the world, it is done. You have fringe candidates and political parties wanting to vie for this and that. And at the end of the day, people are made to pay certain amount of money. However, the difference between theirs and ours is that if you perform, they can peg and say, if you're able to get this number of votes, then your money will be returned. Because it is expected that at that point in time, you can speak to be heard, you have followership, you are forced to be recognized in society. Therefore, that deposit you made will be returned to you once you're able to get or garner some amount of votes, that is in tandem with what they've stipulated. However,
I'm sorry to interject so that you can clarify this point for our viewers. I hope you're not conflating two issues. Deposit is for election proper in jurisdictions where those things occur. Our conversation surrounds the internal affairs of political parties who are saying for you to become their candidate to contest in that election, where if there's a requirement for repayment of deposit, they will do that. So deposit is for election proper. This one is to become a candidate, to participate in the primaries.
Who benefits from the money? Is it not the political parties? It's the same thing. So the political parties need these resources, be it deposit or dues or charges for forms for primary elections. They are the same thing. What we are contesting here is that the political parties are charging fees that are exorbitant. And if we go by that, what we are saying is the younger generations that are upcoming, who may not have the financial muscle to pay for these forms, are out of the race. Now, if that is the case, we should look at this as a framework, as an ideological stand base upon which to solve these problems in the future. It has happened. It is a reality. We are all in it together. The political parties need to survive. We as candidates need to contest. So we have to have a meeting ground. We have to have a place where we will all agree that, look, it has happened in the past. We felt the pain. Next time it shouldn't. How do we ameliorate these problems? But for now, the political parties are broke. They have no resources. Government is not supporting them. They have no other ways of raising money except this. So they are cashing on the little they have. This is the only, instrument they can use. I am not supporting that because I have paid and I know how biting that is. But come to think of it, look at the people who are contesting for the presidential, for the presidency under APC. Are you saying these people cannot afford to pay 100 million? All of them are a success story. They have all been successful in their various, fields of endeavor before joining politics. So they can afford it. The issue is those who are wanting to join now, who may not have the resources. That should be our center focal point. And if they are pushed out because they don't have the resources, how do we ameliorate this problem in the future? Right now it has happened. And we are all feeling the brunt. So I think we should look at it holistically, not only from the point of view of the contestant, but also from the point of view of the party.
Well, this also calls a question, Kingsley, the foundation of the parties that we have in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
If a party cannot ensure that its members are paying their dues, well, of course, the party is not built on a strong foundation.
No, sir. We are all Nigerians.
Well, we are all Nigerians, and we don't have to Nigerianize our own politics in such a way that the public will now lose their trust on politicians. You have just said something here, that most of the aspirants had done well in their areas of endeavor before joining politics, but that's not true. Some of them didn't do well. Some of them had money when they joined politics. Some became governors, became ministers. That's why they had money. And some of them can't even afford to pay this amount of money. They are going out looking for friends to raise the money and what have you. But that will be another set of questions to you in the course of this conversation. But let's go to Dr. Ernest Ereke, political scientist.
Ernest Ereke, by the way, is joining us from Ebonyi.
Ebonyi, yes.
And is aspiring to be a House of
Reps member.
This is his second try. Earlier when he attempted, I think 2015 or 2019, he had his nose bloodied.
Right, okay, sir. Let's have your view on this very important matter.
Okay, thank you very much. In the classrooms, we will teach about democracy, how democracy accommodates everybody, how democracy gives you that freedom of expression. But when you get into politics within a supposedly democratic society, you get to discover that for you to express, for you to exercise your freedom of expression to run for an office, it comes with a price. You have to purchase your freedom of expression. Yes, I'm an aspirant, but the reality is that as Alhaji Umar raised an issue, which I think we should interrogate. The issues are, yes, political parties need to survive, but then we're also talking about a democracy. And so there is a conflict between the survival of the political parties and the exclusion of a large segment of our population. And we are talking about a democratic society where every one of us who meets the requirements of our constitution should be given the opportunity. The law gives you the opportunity, so long as you have met the constitutional requirements, to express your political interests, to participate in politics, to be part of governance. But then again, let us not forget that currently the law, the constitution, does not allow for independent candidacy. And therefore, it is only through political parties that you can contest an election as far as our laws are concerned today. And so if we begin to charge such exorbitant fees just for people to express their interest, to contest various political positions, and then to be nominated for those positions, what it means is that we'll be shutting out so many Nigerians who ordinarily have good intentions for this society and for this country called Nigeria. At best, we are drifting away from democracy towards aristocracy and oligarchy, because that is exactly what it is today, where you have a few privileged class who will have access to political offices, a few privileged class who will have access to determine what happens within the society. And so irrespective of the current realities, economic realities of our society, we must not forget the fact that this is a democracy which should accommodate everybody, irrespective of class, irrespective of status. As far as you have met the laws of the land, then you should be given that opportunity. But continuing the continued monetization of political offices through expression of interest and nomination forms, political parties, for me, will continue to exclude so many Nigerians. And it is not just about the young people, because people will reduce it to the young and to women. It is not just about the young people. It is not just about the female gender. It is about the political exclusion of a certain class in Nigeria, the political exclusion of that class that cannot afford the exorbitant fees. And there are so many within that class. It includes women, it includes young people, it also includes men as well. And therefore, we must not reduce it just to youth, women, or a gender issue. It is a general issue of class. It is the class of the haves versus the class of the have-nots. And that is why I maintain that we are gradually drifting away from a democratic society to an aristocratic society, where only the privileged few will have a voice in our political system. And like Samson Itodo mentioned, it has a lot of knock-on effects, because, of course, if you get into political office, as we have heard so many people say, you would want to recoup. And we are talking about a society where corruption, has held us down for a very long time. We are talking about a society where public officers dip their hands into public votes. And we're also talking about a society where where the state is being hijacked, where if I'm unable to afford these high costs, I will run to a money bag who serves as a godfather. And then this money bag gives me so many conditions upon which he or she will release funds to me to be able to afford the forms. And therefore, at the end of the day, I dance to the tunes and dictates of this money bag. In political science and the social science recently, there is this serious debate about the capture of the state. And the state is only captured through instruments of governance, through the legislature, through the executive, and through other public offices. And if money bags will continue to sponsor candidates, it therefore means that the Nigerian state has been captured by the aristocratic few who have the funds, to be able to afford these exorbitant funds. And so, irrespective of the fact that yes, political parties should survive, but we should be more mindful of accommodating more people within the Nigerian democratic society.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ernest Sereke. Very well put. You've raised a number of pertinent issues. Kieran, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Ernest was, in part, talking about the rise of the aristocratic nature of our democracy. I think it would be more appropriate, respectfully, to say that what we're actually tending towards is plutocracy, which is a government by the wealthy, and everybody who has
And
money.
eventually for the wealthy.
For the wealthy, ultimately. That's plutocratic environment. I want to come back to the IPAC chairman. Part of the reason that has been adduced for this high cost of nomination forms is that the parties have no alternative sources of funding, or viable alternative sources of funding. In particular, there are no membership dues from most of the members of the political parties.
That is true.
But does that not speak to the dysfunctionality of political parties? What are political parties without members? And who is a member of an association without subscription?
That's right.
So, assuming a political party has 1 million members, and each member pays 1,000 naira every year, each of us would spend more than 1,000 naira on recharge cards in a month.
Exactly.
So a member pays 1,000 naira, and the political party has 1 million members. That will amount to 1 billion naira.
That's right.
Why are political parties not concerned that their members are not paying dues instead of waiting to ambush aspirants on the eve of elections through exorbitant fees?
Well, you see, I like to, commend the gentleman that spoke, just a while ago, Samson, and the gentleman,
Dr. Ernest
Sereke, because they aptly, describe, what the negative, effects of what is happening really is, and what the implications to the development of democracy, in Nigeria. But Kingsley, I want you to look at it this way. Let's look at the fundamentals. I think government, or perhaps should I say National Assembly, when they are passing laws or bills, they should perhaps do needs assessment of when they try to create, a particular entity or something different that will come into the system. Needs analysis. What are the needs of, like, for instance, political parties are creation of constitution. Is it that they didn't do the need analysis of the political parties for them to live up to the expectation that you're asking for now? When National Assembly passed the not too young to run bill, didn't they do need analysis of the young people that will participate in these elections? Like you do. Even in the normal business, you have SMEs, you have small businesses that cannot compete because
big corporations.
Yeah, because our economy is run on a capitalist system basis. It's to you according to your ability, and government understanding that this system of economy that we have, which says to you according to ability, they now identify those that do not have those abilities. So the government now come up with some kind of subsidies. To say, okay, let's subsidize this one so that they can compete. So if politics is the most serious business, like we all agree, then government must perhaps, take a second look at what they have done to fund in a way that political parties can run, can operate, to really meet the requirement and be able to deliver on their mandate. Not too young, to run, people, young men who you can testify that yes, this person has a track record. He really has what it takes. He can, to give to the economy. But because of the other conditions, which are inherent, government, steps forward and say, okay, we assist you. Like His Excellency here, says that why not introduce something, that will assist people, this identified, critical, segment of society that should be allowed to also express their ambition and be able to make their contribution into the development of the country, because we need the young people. They are the ones that have the IT, the next frontier. I mean, the next industrialization. Industrialization, which is driven by the information technology. And these are the young people. So if Nigeria want to catch up with the rest of the world, we must find a way by these young people are brought into governance, at the peak where they can take decisions that will align with the trend all over the world. So these are perhaps issues that we should dialogue, and then let National Assembly, let the government take a second look at all these things, that these are needs that we have to meet. Otherwise, you create a monster, like, the whole thing is appearing to be. So I think it's not really the fault of because again, if you go back to the cost, the high cost we are talking about. For instance, somebody who want to aspire to be a president of this country, and the party said, give me 100 million. Okay, the party will have to organize, rallies, or even the administrative setup in the 36 days plus federal capital. So divide 100 million by 37, less than 2.5 million. So how can 2.5 million run an effective campaign for that individual that wants to be president? For him to really, when if you don't, the party, if your members come and say, we don't hear about our party, we don't see our posters, we don't see you on the television, they are not talking about our party, and these things cost money. So I'm not justifying the high cost, but I'm telling you that there are fundamental issues that, as a government, as a nation, National Assembly, the government must come together and reassess the needs, analysis, assessment of this creation that has come to be.
Yeah, IPAC Chairman, thank you very much, Kieran.
You've spoken so well, in this direction, but I'm still worried about a situation where, in a country like Nigeria, we have political parties where members don't pay dues, members don't subscribe, there's no grassroots funding method, and then we now rely on aspirants to raise money, and the money that's going to be raised after this exercise will not even last for more than 1 year for the party. So where is then that source of money? Wait for another 4 years, for you now to start asking aspirants to pay 200. In fact, by the next 4 years, you may be asking aspirants to pay 200 million to be a president.
Aside from the economic issues, there are also other, very, very important areas that we must also, interrogate. Think about this. It used to be that members pay their dues, isn't it? So that you become a governor or chairman of council or president. But today, what you see, when these people that find it very hard to pay these dues, after finding a way to pay the dues, and you become a governor, the next thing they hear is that that governor has stolen, about 3 trillion naira. All the budget given to him is probably he gave it to his friends, and maybe some he used to build houses in Dubai and Europe, and you see him having so many houses all over the place. And they come out, and then this member, this ordinary member would be seeing that, this man that I paid dues, to become a governor, look at what he has done to me. The corruption.
If people begin to pay dues,
the corruption.
Then the governor may not spend the money the way he's doing, because people are not committed to the party.
They are committed.
He's not even asking.
We the politicians,
they didn't put their money in
we the politicians discourage them. We discourage them from paying dues, because when you become somebody, like a governor or chairman local government, then you begin to marry more wives, build fantastic houses, and all this. So what would encourage the Nigerian, the poor man, to now come and pay dues for any political party?
Precisely. That is the point I would like you to respond to. Namely, that the non-payment of dues by members is indicative of a more serious issue.
Exactly.
That is to say, the lack of faith in the political class to deliver on good governance.
That is the reality of it.
So why can't members pay?
I would
You can't make
prefer
them pay.
to blame the membership, because you see, the parties have done quite a lot in the past in trying to ensure that members pay their dues. But these dues are not coming in. They are not forthcoming. Maybe because of what the chairman IPAC said, that they tend to look at their leadership as being corrupt,
Exactly.
mismanaging their resources, and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Therefore, for that, they feel the pain of even paying the 1,000
Exactly.
naira, the so-called 1,000
Instead, they
naira
want to
we're
come and
talking
take.
about.
They say, okay, give my own
So
share.
if that is the
Since we
case,
just take away our resources.
then if that is the case, it means we are losing faith, not only in our parties, but even in the system.
Exactly.
And that is dangerous.
Yeah.
So I think the parties must find ways and means of ensuring that people pay their dues. However, it is also a solid fact that members of these political parties will always say, look, if you put pressure on me to pay you 1,000 naira every year, I can as well join another political party. No political party wants to hear that. They always want more people coming in rather than people going out. So they may keep quiet, not because they want to, but because they have to in order to survive as a political party. And in so doing, they will have nothing in their purse. They will be broke, just as we have today. And the only way out for them is to wait for people like us who are interested in contesting and exploit us at this juncture.
Yeah, because
let's bring in Yaga once more. Yaga Africa, Samson Itudu. You've listened to the two politicians with us here in the studio, and of course, Kinsley and I have tried to raise some very pertinent questions concerning the state of affairs of Nigeria's political parties, right, and the way they are run, and the way they are administered. And of course, the issues we be having in the past, where some parties don't even have a substantive chairman for over a year or more, and things like that. In such a circumstance, one wouldn't expect to have a party that has a good foundation and what have you. So what's your reaction to the comments that have made so far?
Well, the first reaction is it is clear from the parties, and particularly from the comments made by the chairman of the Interparty Advisory Council, that our political parties are not committed to decommercializing politics in Nigeria. And as long as this status quo remains, we will see increased costs on nomination forms because the parties are not committed to reducing the impact of money in our politics. Yes, politics is expensive. However, I think that the more we continue to emphasize and commercialize the political process, it creates a lot of danger for public governance and our democracy. And I think that parties need to come to that understanding. In cases where they understand this, it's been mere lip service, and their actions does not demonstrate any willingness, to reduce the cost of politics in Nigeria. The National Assembly, in reviewing and amending, the Electoral Act, one of the principles that governed or informed some of the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022 is the need to reduce the cost of elections. And if the National Assembly, is taking that direction, I expect that parties should also adopt same, because increased money politics threatens our democracy, and it also threatens governance. I think parties need to understand that. The second bit around the institution of political parties and how they are organized. The truth is, let's take the APC, for instance, and this analogy was made yesterday at the meeting that the allergy and I were yesterday. If the APC claims it has 41 million members, or 45 million members, if these 45 million members contribute 1,000 naira each, when we calculated, it will raise about 45 billion naira or so. But is the party, and do parties have a credible, reliable, and authentic register of members? The answer is no. There are just a few parties that have credible register of members. And the reason why parties are less interested in recruiting a structured membership within their political parties is this attitude towards internal democracy in the parties and the lack of accountability. Political parties don't want to be accountable because when you shift the balance of power in parties, the hegemons, which Ernest was talking about within the political parties, will now hijack the entire, structures of political parties, which is what's happening now. They don't want to share power. So this power asymmetry within political parties serves the interests of the current political elite. And if members begin to contribute, then members will now be asking accountability questions. And these are the kinds of questions that our political class do not want at any point in time. Secondly, governors still fund political parties. Most leaders of political parties at the state are on the payroll, of the governors. And it's very sad. And how to reverse this is first we have a conversation. Political parties need to have a conversation about how, they maintain credible register of members. They also involve members in decision making, because if there is no participation, there's no commitment anywhere. Why should political parties contribute, to payment of dues when parties cannot even give account of their expenditure, cannot even respect the provisions of the Electoral Act that provides that parties need to make returns to INEC, and INEC also reporting to the National Assembly. Parties fail to respond to this. So that culture of lack of accountability that exists is what, why deepens this particular situation that we have. And the third critical point, with respect to our political parties, is the fact that, our parties are, platforms for the aggregation of social interests and not necessarily, platforms that exist for the contest of power. Yes, they contest for political power, no doubt, but they are also platforms for aggregation of social interest. But how do you aggregate social interest if you don't have, if you don't have a membership recruitment, a membership retention mechanism within your parties? And so our political parties need to take this seriously. And I say this with all sense of responsibility, that the IPAC, has a leadership role to play in this, in helping parties structure their institutions to deliver on the promise of democracy, to deliver on, institutional development, as well as that platform that aggregates social interest, but also provides competent and quality leadership. When the parties fail, we as members of society suffer because we have no option than to vote for candidates that parties present at the end of the day. And if those parties do not have democratic ways of recruiting leaders, we are left with no option. And in this case, our choice as voters is compromised by the political parties for their failure to maintain, strong democratic institutions, as well as practices that yield, leaders that reflect the will and aspirations of the Nigerian people. So I think the buck stops at the leadership of the political parties. If any leader is not performing when elected, the party should be held responsible because they are the ones who commercialized the process and made it so difficult for competent people to run for office. But I dare say that our parties have an opportunity, in the forthcoming elections. And it's sad that they've imposed high costs. They can still reverse it, but they also need to go beyond this high cost of nomination forms to put their support and structure behind individuals who have the requisite capacity, competence, and character to provide that transformative, responsive, and accountable leadership that Nigeria daily needs at this critical moment.
All right, Samson Itodo, thank you very much there for your perspective. We'll take a short break now. When we return, the conversation continues.
Are you aware that your perfect family may be under threat by germs? Germs can cause infectious disease. These infectious diseases are amongst the biggest killers of adults and children. Illness-causing germs are everywhere. In unclean bathing water, on your clothes, dirty surfaces, on cuts and wounds. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capful. In your bathing water, in your laundry, for surface cleaning, for first aid, and to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
Do you run a breast or cervical cancer service? Are you a private or public laboratory, clinic or hospital that offer any of breast imaging, cervical cancer screening, HPV vaccination, or other breast or cervical cancer services? Is your service a primary, secondary, or tertiary center located in any part of Nigeria, no matter how remotely located it is? If yes to any of these questions, then subscribe to the OCI Foundation's Save Breast app and become accessible and visible to millions of Nigerians. It is all for free. To subscribe, just type the Save Breast application form on Google or go to the OCI Foundation's page on www.ocifoundation.org and search for Save Breast application form. Complete the form and submit. And let millions of Nigerians patronize you, all for free. Become part of the OCI Foundation's quest to tackle breast and cervical cancers in Nigeria. And join us as we rise by lifting others.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service. All our four guests are still with us, two of them on Zoom, Sami Todo, Ernest Ereke, and here in the Abuja studios, IPAC chairman and Alhaji Mustafa, is aka Otumba. Dr. Ernest Ereke, let's have your take on this issue as part of the rationalization for the charge of exorbitant nomination fees by the parties, namely that members are reluctant to pay their subscriptions. And we've used the analogy of saying members paying 1,000 naira a year. That will amount to about 83 naira 33 kobo per month. And members are not paying this because of the widely held view that political parties, their candidates, and those in office are not delivering on good governance. What's your take on this, and how can we deal with the optics?
Okay, thank you very much. I think in addition to the failure of governance, of course, you know that government in our system is enthroned through political parties. And so apart from the failure of political parties to put up good leaders for Nigerians to choose from, there is also the issue of the elitist nature of these political parties. Our political parties in Nigeria are generally elitist. There is no mass-based political party in Nigeria. And so you find that political parties are generally, controlled by the elites in the Nigerian society. And nobody really makes that effort, to woo Nigerians to believe in the principles that political parties advance and advocate in the country. And so Nigerians see these political parties as an exclusive club of the big men, as we will say in Nigeria, an exclusive club of the rich, and that's why I continue talking about the aristocrats. Yes, plutocracy is government of the rich, but aristocracy is more like a caste system where you have just a few privileged class controlling the society, and for this few privileged class to continue to control the society, the political parties will be elitist in nature, and that is why Nigerians do not believe that they are part and parcel of these political parties, and therefore they do not, contribute or pay their dues. But apart from that, also is the issue of the organizational structure of these political parties. Parties need to be organized, and the organizational structure of the political parties, that is, if these political parties want to woo members, will require that these parties will have to look at what happens at the ward levels of the structure, of the organizational structure of the political party, what happens at the local government levels, what happens at the senatorial district levels, the state levels, the geopolitical zones levels, and then to the national levels. And so, but of course, like I said, it is an elitist party. It is elitist structured, and therefore political parties do not really go down or do not really bother about what happens at the ward level. The only time you find out that political parties take interest in the lower structure of the political parties is when you have disputes within the political parties. You can make reference to what happened to the former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress. You'll recall that it was an issue that emanated from his work, showing therefore that the foundation of the political parties should indeed be at the ward level, but these issues are not taken seriously. And so these parties become elitist, and therefore Nigerians will not contribute to that. And you're also looking at the dysfunctional nature of the administrative and organizational structure of political parties. But then again, Alhaji Umar will tell you that he will not be screened as, to run for primaries in the APC if he doesn't pay his dues. And so every aspirant, political parties wait until electoral period, and therefore they insist that you begin to contribute, to pay the backlog of your dues before you even be screened. But then again, also is an important point that Samson Itodo raised about governors funding these political parties. And I think it is something we also need to investigate. Now, political parties are not government parastatals, and therefore where and how do
Okay, well, we seem to have lost the connection there, but I believe it's going to be temporary because we've had clear, signal, all this while. All right, let's return to the studio straight away. And I want to ask here the Inter-Party Advisory Council chairman, during the regime of President Babangida, we had two parties. He created two parties, right? A little to the right and a little to the left. And they were designed to be funded by government, right? In fact, he built political offices, political party offices in council areas across the nation, right? Of course, that didn't last or something. But would it have been the best option, when it comes to funding of political parties? The ideology that he brought into play as at that time, would it have been a better option for Nigeria, since political parties cannot structurally organize themselves in such a way that members pay their dues and raise funds naturally, and even create other sources of fundraising? Would that ideology would it have been better for Nigeria?
Not at all, because you'll be standing the pyramid on its head and it will crumble. The political parties are supposed to control government, not government controlling political parties. So if you do that, you will be handing over the whole foundation of a political party. The ability to, like somebody, Samson Todo, the gentleman who spoke now, They're all talking about the fact that political parties are not living up to expectation, meaning that we are not giving the nation the leadership that it deserves. So the issue is that the funding I'm talking about is not the government to come and legislate or come and start establishing parties as parastatals, under government. No, it will make a nonsense of the whole thing. So, but there's a need, for government to fund political parties' activities, not funding establishment of political parties, and then thereby, complaint is that governors are funding, political parties, isn't it? It's because nature abhors vacuum, Now, political parties could not find another way of, funding their activities. And like I said, let's go back to the fundamentals of the issue here, really. For instance, what is happening today? This government we have today came on the platform of fighting corruption, growing our economy, providing security for our lives of property in this country, So you see, when you go to the issue of corruption, which we have been talking about, there's not so much that one can say has justified, the existence of this government based on the platform on which they campaigned and were elected. And this is why we are where we are today. If government functionaries have been punished, in such a manner that an average Nigerian would know that no, if you run foul of the law, definitely you are going to answer for it. Perhaps that confidence and that support that we were looking for from the Nigerians, to come and then fund political parties so that they can have government of that will give them good governance, will be what we'll find without any problem. But today the trust quotient, the trust that average Nigerian has in governance is below minimum. This is why you cannot move then to say, okay, let me invest in establishment of a government. They believe that once somebody becomes a minister, or a governor or president, he's on his own. And you can't do nothing because you go to court or you go to National Assembly, there's no this recall. It has never worked anywhere in this country that you say, okay, I voted you and now you're not doing what we want. The same people will have the power to now call you back. They don't have. So until you give them that power and until they can see that the system is working for them, the system today is working for we political parties. And this is the unfortunate thing. And you expect a government to come and then change that. Political parties cannot change that, and Nigerians themselves cannot change that. It is the government of the day that should do, what they need to do.
All right. Thank you very much, IPAC Chairman. We're getting pressed for time. This is a very interesting conversation, Kirian. Yeah. And we'll see what happens. But just before I bring in Alhaji Mustafa, we appear now in the Fourth Republic to take it for granted that some, if not most, state governors fund political parties. And this is illegal. We all recall, maybe we may recall what happened after the collapse of the Second Republic, 1979 to 1983. Professor Ambrose Ali was governor of Bender State, and from 1979 to 1983, he lost the 83 election, and then, of course, Ogbemudia took over. 3 months later, the system collapsed. Ambrose Ali was tried by one of the special military tribunals in 1984 and sentenced. Ambrose Ali did not, as we say, eat money, but that the government awarded a contract to a contractor who then funded the UPN in Old Bender. It is one of the reasons why he was jailed. But today, we take it for granted that, governors are funding parties, and even political parties have literally their headquarters or their offices at Government House. So it's something that we may need to interrogate going forward. And when you even look at the optics, the cost of nomination forms for governor is so high. Look at the difference between that and the Senate. The cost of pre-nomination form for president is also so high, which tells you that, okay, there's some good meat that is there. We are articulating all of this.
In all the states of this country, governors are the leaders of their parties in the state, which is unbecoming.
Absolutely.
They are leaders. You cannot be leading while you are faced with governance as the governor.
Yes.
You are the leader of the party cannot take any decision without the governor being there. And what have you? So that has just some assaulted the entire system.
In fact, you're holding WC meetings and government house. Government takes decisions, and then the chairman will have to go and wait for the government in the waiting room.
The chairman calling the
government's waiting room. And obviously, it's deleterious to democracy. Let's get your take on this, Alhaji Mustafa. But there's also a point that IPAC chairman made off there. Namely, constitutions of most political parties would require you to be a financial member to participate in the activities of those political parties. If most of the members, therefore, are not paying their dues, how can they then be delegates at your primaries?
Exactly.
Well, that's the big question. The laxity is both from the political parties themselves. They've never sat to look at this issue. It's a very serious issue. We wouldn't have been talking about all these issues today if every member has paid his dues and the political parties are well funded. So the lackadaisical attitude of the political parties towards generating revenue from their members, which is the main source, the main independent and legal source that they have, and then they decide, to wait for elections and then exploit contestants. I think if they had done what they're supposed to do some few years ago, we wouldn't have been talking about this issue altogether. But again, we are Nigerians and we know how things operate. And it's difficult to get people, to pay money, with what we have on ground. We see a lot of, unbecoming things from our political leaders. You are rubbing shoulders with a man a few days ago, and today he is the governor, buying assets in billions of naira and so on and so forth. You wonder where he is able to raise that kind of money. It's public funds. So one way or the other, manipulating the system, to favor their, interests and so on and so forth. So that has killed, the consciousness of the voting populace to believe that they need to contribute money, for their parties to survive. They need to contribute money, for the system to live longer and so on and so forth and grow. We need to go back to the basics. The parties need to go back to the basics.
Exactly.
Look at, the problems, the attendant problems responsible for people not contributing money. And if they are able to overcome that and institutionalize it, I think we would have overcome most of these problems.
Okay, we are running out of time, really, but we would like our guests who are reaching us via Zoom to say one or two words, before we will round off. Let's begin with Samson Itodo. What do we do? Do we now say, okay, dissolve all the parties, start afresh, and let's see who is a member, who isn't a member? How do we handle the situation at the moment?
Well, I don't think the solution is dissolving political parties. Political parties are a critical democratic institutions. As you know, there's a chapter dedicated to political parties in our constitution. So it's not about, dissolving the parties. I think that parties need to be managed by individuals who have, who uphold democratic tenets and principles. And that way it can reflect on the way they manage the political parties. That's one. Two, parties need to rethink their membership recruitment, membership retention mechanism. Yes, we've had parties recruiting members. I think it should go beyond the lip service to, updating and maintaining accurate register of voters. In any case, through the instrumentality of the electoral law, parties are going to be compelled, to maintain those registers, because Section 77, sub 3 of the Electoral Act provides that political parties shall submit their list of members or register of members to INEC before any primary or any convention. So I hope that would shape, the character of our political class. And the last point is around, decommercializing our electoral process. And first, it begins with How do we reduce the parasite of office in Nigeria today? That people are paying all sorts of amounts of money because they want to get into power, to use political power to advance their own sectional, primordial, or selfish interests, and not use political power to advance the common good. So we need to reset that and try and ask the parties, to limit the costs that they place on individuals for their nomination fees. Because what you do is you legitimize corruption when you impose high cost of nomination fees. I am one, and Dr. Yaba knows I am against state funding of political parties. Parties
no better way to do this, just to cut him.
All right, Samson Itodo would like to appreciate you and, in fact, the other guests for the issues you have raised. This is a continuing conversation. One of the issues you were just raising now has to do with, shall we say, background checks on so-called friends who are raising funds for aspirants. I'm not casting aspersions on any of them. Some of them are, of course, successful businessmen, but you do know that if a candidate has an interest and there are sponsors behind, you want to know who those sponsors are. There are all kinds of rules against terror financing, against drug barons getting into the political arena and all that. So, gentlemen, we appreciate you for being our guest this morning. Samson Itodo, Executive Director, Yaga Africa, with us via Zoom. Dr. Ernest Tereke, political scientist and aspirant of the PDP for the House of Reps in Ebonyi State. Always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria. And here in the studios, Alhaji Mustafa Umar Madawaki, a.k.a. Otumba, governorship aspirant, APC, Adamawa State. Thank you for being our guest this morning.
Thank you very much.
And last but not the least, Alhaji Yabagi Yusuf Sani, chairman of Interparty Advisory Council, and also national chairman of the ADP. Thank you very much for being our guest.
Thank you, Kinsley.
All right, so let's go over now to sports.
Nigeria's Super Falcons have been placed in Pot 1 ahead of Friday's draw